So roughly speaking, basically the closed models are ahead, but like people are monitoring the number of months that sort of like open source models are behind.
And it started with there's nothing, and then it went to 18 months.
And now it's there's like, been a convergence, right? So maybe they're behind by like, what is the latest? Maybe like 8 months kind of thing right now. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of open source, obviously. So for example, in operating systems, you have like closed source, like, Windows and Mac OS. These are large software projects, kind of like what LLMs are going to become. And there's Linux, but Linux is very easy. Like actually Linux is an extremely successful project. It runs on the vast majority of computers. Like last time I checked, was it like 60% or something like run Linux? And that's because there is a need in the industry to have a common open platform that everyone feels sort of safe using. I would say like the industry has always felt a demand for that kind of a project to exist. And I think the same is true now. And that's why businesses actually there's demand for this kind of a thing to exist. The big difference is that everything is capital. There's a lot of CapEx that goes into this. So I think that's where things like fall apart a little bit, make it a bit harder to compete in a certain sense. I do think that the current models are very good. The other thing that I think is like really interesting is that for the vast majority of like consumer use cases and things like that, even like current open source models are actually quite good, I would say. And I think like if you go forward like more years, it does seem to me like a huge amount of like simple use cases are going to be well covered and actually even run locally. But there's going to be always like some demand for like frontier intelligence, and that can actually be extremely large piece of the pie. But it could be that the need for frontier intelligence is going to be like, Nobel Prize kind of work, or like, let's move Linux from C to Rust. There's going to be like bigger projects, like scoped in that kind of a way. And there's going to be maybe more, and maybe that's where a lot of the frontier closed intelligences are going to be interacting with. And open source is kind of like going to eat through a lot of the more basic use cases or something like that. At some point, what is frontier today is going to be, probably later this year, what's frontier today in terms of what I'm using right now from the closed labs might be open source, and that's going to be doing a lot of work. So I kind of expect that this dynamic will actually basically continue. Like we'll have frontier labs that have closed AIs that are kind of like these oracles, and then we'll have open source kind of like behind by some amount of months. And I kind of expect that to continue.